Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The night was warm, the kind that clung to the skin with a whisper of summer. The silk sheets slid over my legs as I shifted, their coolness sending a shiver that betrayed the heat between us. He stood by the edge of the bed, his fingers hesitating just above my wrist, not quite touching, yet the space between felt electric. The soft rustle of the nightie against my skin made his breath hitch for a moment, a sound he didn't mean to let slip. Our eyes locked, his gaze lingering, searching, almost daring. My heartbeat drummed louder than the quiet ticking of the clock on the wall. The room was heavy with unsaid words, the air scented faintly with jasmine and something deeper, something that felt like trouble waiting to happen. He leaned closer, the space between us shrinking with every inch, until the warmth of his chest was a whisper away from mine. I tilted my head, just slightly, enough for the silk strap to slip down my shoulder. His fingers twitched, brushing the sheet, and a low, restrained breath escaped him. "Are you sure?" he murmured, voice low and laced with something I hadn't heard in a long time, hesitation mixed with hunger. I didn't answer. I only shifted again, pulling him that fraction closer, my pulse quickening with the thrill of it, knowing exactly what I was doing, yet unsure of what would follow. And just as his hand finally touched mine, everything paused. The room stayed still, but beneath that stillness, something stirred that neither of us had dared to name for weeks. Our days had become a quiet dance, familiar, yet distant. We laughed when it was expected, talked when the silence grew too heavy, and pretended that the small cracks between us were just shadows of routine. But tonight, under the soft glow of the lamp, those cracks felt wide enough to fall through. He sat down on the edge of the bed, close enough for the mattress to shift, making my body instinctively lean toward him. His hand brushed against mine again, deliberately this time, his fingers lingering a heartbeat longer than they needed to. "Do you remember when we used to stay up all night just talking?" he asked, his voice soft, almost a whisper, as if afraid to wake the ghosts of those nights. I nodded, a faint smile tugging at my lips. "We still could," I murmured, though we both knew the weight behind those words. The truth was, somewhere along the way, we had let time steal more than sleep. It had taken the easy touches, the lingering glances, the teasing that once lived between us. His gaze traveled over me, pausing at the strap barely clinging to my shoulder, then back to my eyes. There was something there, not just desire, but longing. A longing to return, to feel the spark without having to ask for it. "I miss us," he said finally, the words almost too raw to breathe. My heart skipped, not because I hadn't felt the same, but because hearing it made it real. I shifted closer, the silk whispering between us, my knee brushing his thigh. He didn't move away. "I miss how you used to look at me," I whispered, the air tightening between us. "Like I was more than just your everyday." His fingers finally traced the back of my hand, slow, deliberate, sending a pulse of warmth up my arm. It wasn't just a touch, it was a question, one that trembled with hope and hesitation. And in that quiet, as the night held its breath, the distance between us felt suddenly fragile, like a thread waiting to either break or pull us back together. The air between us thickened, no longer just quiet, it felt charged, heavy with everything unsaid. His hand lingered a second longer than necessary, and I didn't pull away. Instead, I let the silence stretch, watching the flicker in his eyes shift from softness to something sharper, a hunger he tried to bury but couldn't quite hide. I caught him glancing at my phone earlier, his jaw tightening when a message lit up the screen. He didn't ask, but I saw the question in his eyes. Who was it? And why did his heart beat faster at the thought of me belonging somewhere else, even for a moment? "I saw the way he looked at you last night," he said suddenly, voice low, almost casual, but the tension in his fingers betrayed him. I arched a brow, the silk strap slipping a little further down as I turned toward him. "And how did he look?" I whispered, not because I wanted to tease, but because part of me wanted to see how far his restraint would go. His hand clenched slightly on the sheet, knuckles pale. like he wanted to be right here instead of me. The words hung there, heavy, dangerous. My heart raced, not from guilt, but from the sudden rush of being seen, desired, even if it came with a flicker of jealousy I hadn't expected. I leaned in, close enough for my hair to brush his shoulder, my voice barely above a breath. And what if I wanted you to notice? His breath caught, the space between us burning hotter than the summer night itself. There was no kiss yet, no touch that crossed the line, only the unspoken challenge, the almost that lingered on our lips. For the first time in weeks, it felt like something might break, and neither of us knew which way it would fall. The house had gone silent, no footsteps in the hallway, no distant hum of the TV, just the soft hiss of the summer night through the half-open window. It was the first time in weeks we were truly alone, and somehow, that silence felt louder than anything else. He stood near the door, as if debating whether to leave or stay, his hands still resting on the frame. I shifted on the bed, the silk sheets sliding like water over my skin, and that sound alone was enough to pull his eyes back to me. "Close the door," I said quietly, my voice steady, though my heart was racing. He hesitated for a second, then did. The click of the latch was louder than it should have been. Suddenly, the room felt smaller, warmer, the space between us thinning by the second. He moved closer, slow but certain, until he was standing beside the bed. The dim light caught the edge of his jaw, the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers brushed against the wood as though steadying himself. I tilted my head back to meet his eyes, letting the strap slip just a little further down, a wordless challenge. His breath deepened, the air thick with everything we'd been avoiding, the longing, the unspoken questions, the magnetic pull that neither of us had fully admitted. "Are you going to keep pretending?" I whispered, my hand brushing against his just enough to make him freeze. His jaw tightened, but he didn't step away this time. "You really want me to stop?" The words were dangerous, not because of how they were said, but because of what they promised. The night felt like it was leaning forward, waiting to see who would move first. And then, just as he finally reached out, fingers grazing my shoulder, the hallway light flicked on. The door stayed shut behind him, the hallway light fading back into silence, and for a heartbeat, the world felt like it had stopped turning. His hand lingered just above my shoulder, fingers trembling as though he knew one touch could unravel everything. I shifted beneath the silk sheets, the satin clinging to my skin, heartbeat thundering against my ribs. This moment had been building, every glance, every almost touch, every unsaid word, and now, with no one left to interrupt, the distance between us felt too fragile to hold. "Say it," I whispered, my voice low, steady. "Whatever it is you've been holding back." His eyes darkened, breath shallow. "You really want the truth?" I nodded, and that was when the ground shifted. "It wasn't just you I saw tonight," he said, voice rough, trembling between confession and accusation. "It was him, leaving this room." The words hit like a slap, the air shattering into sharp, invisible pieces. My throat tightened. "You think, I don't think," he cut in, his voice rising, raw with something deeper than anger, hurt, jealousy, something primal. "I know what I saw." The room spun, the tension no longer just a pull of desire but a clash of trust and temptation. I moved closer, the sheet falling to my waist, my fingers brushing his wrist, not to comfort, but to steady the storm that was breaking between us. "It wasn't what you think," I murmured, meeting his gaze. "But maybe I wanted you to feel something again. Even if it meant this." His chest rose sharply, torn between wanting to step back and wanting to pull me in. The heat between us had changed, no longer gentle, but fierce, a fire burning on the edge of breaking everything. He reached out suddenly, his hand gripping the sheet near my hip, knuckles white. "So this is what it takes for you to pull me back." The words hung there, a mix of accusation and longing, of betrayal and something far more dangerous, because now, for the first time, he wasn't sure if the night was about love, or revenge. And just as his lips hovered a breath away, the the sound of a message alert lit the screen beside the bed. His name wasn't on it. The phone screen dimmed again, leaving only the faint warmth of the room, but the damage was done. The silence that followed was heavier than any words. He stepped back slightly, still gripping the sheet like it was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. "Who is it?" he asked, voice low, almost breaking. "Tell me I'm wrong." I sat there, breathing steadily, though my pulse was racing. "It's not what you think," I whispered. "You want the truth? Then hear it. I've been trying to get your attention for months. And tonight, you finally looked at me." His jaw clenched, eyes darting between me and the phone. "So you pushed me to jealousy? You made me think I was losing you?" "I wanted you to feel what I felt," I said, voice cracking, the words spilling faster now. "Ignored. Unseen. I needed you to want me again, not out of comfort, but out of fire." The tension snapped. He turned away, pacing toward the window, running his hand through his hair. "You could have just told me," he muttered, his shoulders tight with a mix of anger and something deeper, regret. "I tried," I said, standing slowly, the silk pooling around my ankles. "You didn't hear me." He finally faced me, eyes glassy under the dim light. "And now?" I stepped closer, close enough to feel his breath. "Now you know what's at stake. I don't want secrets between us. I want the nights back, the ones where you couldn't stop touching me, where you didn't need a reason." His hands hovered near mine, the storm in him finally softening, though the air was still electric. "If we do this," he said, voice steady now, "no more games. No more tests." I nodded, my heart pounding, not from fear, but from the rawness of it all. "Then start now. Don't step back again." He exhaled, long and slow, as though letting go of something he'd been holding too tight. And in that pause, the weight between us shifted, from anger to ache, from suspicion to something that could still be saved. But before his hands finally closed around mine, the sound of the front door unlocking echoed through the house. The sound of the front door closing echoed faintly, then faded into the silence of the house. We stood there, two hearts still pounding from everything said and unsaid, the room heavy with what almost tore us apart. But this time, neither of us stepped back. He moved closer first, his hand still trembling as it reached for mine. I didn't pull away, I wrapped my fingers around his, letting the warmth of his touch quiet the chaos between us. "I don't want to fight anymore," he whispered, eyes softening. "I don't want to wonder. I just want us back." Something in my chest loosened at those words. The jealousy, the tension, the sleepless nights, all of it felt like shadows fading at dawn. "Then take us back," I said, voice low, almost breaking with relief. He let out a breath that sounded like surrender and pulled me closer until my forehead rested against his chest. The world outside didn't matter anymore, not the messages, not the missed nights, not the doubts. Just the warmth of him, the familiar scent on his skin, the steady rhythm of a heartbeat that finally matched mine again. "I forgot how easy this used to feel," he murmured against my hair. "It's still here," I whispered. "We just needed to stop pretending it wasn't." His hand trailed gently down my arm, fingers finding the sheet he had gripped so tightly before, this time only to wrap it around us both. The night felt softer now, no longer charged with what might break, but what might begin again. Under the dim golden light, he tilted my chin up and kissed me, slow, certain, nothing rushed. It wasn't a kiss to erase what happened, but to promise what could come next. We stayed like that, wrapped in silk and forgiveness, knowing tomorrow would still have questions, but tonight, we finally had an answer.